it comes out it comes out so naturally, uh, and it feels good. At one time, like I said, I would never talk about these things, but if it's going to help people, if it brings them a smile or if they laugh, uh, if it brings them more sensitivity towards many of the issues that I talked about and exposed, uh, I'm grateful. To me, that's why I'm doing it. That's what I'm in this for.
Tanshe Kiowow, thanks for joining us again here with Lester and Agnes. And we are on our sixth, I guess, talking time, storytelling time. And really looking forward to this one, learning a little bit more about Lester and his art and what he's been up to in the last few years. Agnes, do you want to do a quick recap?
Yes. Hello. Hi, Dad. Hi, Essay. Good to be here with you both again. We've had a really, really interesting, roller coaster of different emotions listening to your stories, Dad. All the really good memories, all the really difficult memories, things that me as your daughter didn't know, didn't realize, and like just bringing to life a lot of stories that we've kind of generally heard about, these residential school experiences, but really being able to connect more with, the truth of what those experiences were like. And so I'm glad that we've been able to do that. And I hope that other people, learn learn what they can and take what they can from these stories. Um, so looking at that, like, is there anything that you'd like to talk about today? I know we'd like to talk about your artwork, things that you've done, since you, um, left residential school. I know that artwork in a lot of ways helps us, to stay busy, to make an income, but also kind of like helps us with our healing when we're, expressing ourselves in a creative way. So I don't know if you want to start by talking about your artwork or if there's anything else you want to recap and talk about.
Yeah, there's something that just came to mind, and it was on my mind last night, and it involves you when you were very, very young. I don't know whatever happened, but you ended up in a hospital. Your mother got hold of me, so I went to see you, and her and I were kind of, living separately then, and so I went up. She was busy, so I went to see you. I don't know how old you were. I think it was 3, somewhere in there. You were in a hospital bed when I came in, and some of the nurses came up and talked to me, a doctor talked to me, and there was a woman doctor, and she said, your daughter needs to receive intravenous, and said she's very young, and we wanted to know if you would approve of us doing it, because she said her strength is not there, and the intravenous would help. And the only place that we could do it is that was right here. There was a vein right here between your eyes or somewhere around there. They could detect the vein. So I felt uncomfortable for a minute, and then was a couple nurses came in. They were very kind, and they said we've had this done before, and it will really help because her strength is down. So I said, okay, go ahead. So I went out of the room, and I sat down. Oh, I made a couple calls to some of the old timers I worked with and asked them to have a good mind for you and speak. So I went back in and I asked if I could stay because you were asleep, if I could get a cot. and stay with you. So they gave me a cot, so I laid down. I went to sleep right away. When I woke up, you were happy. You were okay. They removed the intravenous, and they said they couldn't give you so much. It had to be just a certain amount. And you were all right. I was just so happy at that time that you pulled through. You're okay. So I visited you after that, and then your mom come and got you. But just something came to mind last night. I just wanted to start with that.
I get that. When I was a child, I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, and I feel like a lot of my memories at that time was in the hospital. I spent a lot of time, being hospitalized, being really sick. And I know when I got a little bit older, Dad, you picked me up, and I remember you doing like, I don't want to say on here, but you did something that helped me. And shortly after that, the doctors were like, said that I went into remission. That, I'd stopped having the pain. I just basically didn't have it anymore.
I remember that.
Like a vague memory, but I do remember that time that you picked me up and you helped me, and then arthritis was gone, and I wasn't in a hospital anymore. I wasn't in pain. I didn't need medication.
Yeah, that was wonderful, because I recall I was working with the old timers, and I was learning how to speak, for people, and especially you. And when that happened, I had no, I never have any doubts about anything. I was so happy. I was so happy when you told me, you're all right. You're okay. Your leg is fine. I knew it was. I knew before, because when you told me about their diagnosis and everything, I thought, no, we don't go there. There's other ways. And I just feel so good, because at that point, I think I was 24 years without a drink or smoke or anything. I quit everything. But sometimes when you come clear, your mind comes clear, and your thoughts, and whatever it is you express, your feeling, to the one who put us here. So it works. I feel good, because I remember that so well. I think you were at Muscopita Reserve.
Yeah,
I wasn't far away.
I don't remember. I just remember being super sick where I could barely open my eyes.
Yeah. Then another time I was driving home from Regina, and I thought I'll go to Piapot and drive down the valley, because I was staying in Pasqua Reserve, just past Muscopita. So I was driving along, and a long distance away, I could see somebody standing on the hill. There was other kids running around, and the other kids left. There was only that one individual standing there on the hill, and I didn't see clearly who it was, but I just felt inside. I thought, I want to go and see Aggie. That's where she lives, right around there somewhere. I pull up close, and you're looking at me. Here it was you. And I just knew, she stayed there. All the other kids were gone. I think Nip, your brother, was gone, and I don't know who else was there. But I knew it was you, and I wanted you to stay there. And sure enough, when I got closer, in my mind, I thought it was you. I wanted it to be you. And it turned out to be you. It was just amazing. I was just so happy. But, moving on, where for my artwork, in the year of 1970 is when I started it, off and on over the years. And my artwork, it's, I don't know how to describe it. It's wearable. You can hang it on the wall as decor, or you can wear it, wearable decor, put it that way. And I remember I was in Vancouver. I just made a piece, which was a very unusual choker. It wasn't bone. I never used bone. I use brass, and it's all bullet casings. It's all brass bullet casings, different sizes. But anyway, I wore that for a while. A lot of the other Indians wanted one, and I just had enough material to put that one together because I was traveling a lot, and I couldn't carry a lot of stuff around with me. Just when I got, centered for a while and stayed for a month or two or so at a place, I would start to do the artwork. But my first piece, it was spotted by a guy who called himself Bear. Big hippie guy. Looked like a mountain man. Big beard and real friendly guy. So he saw me and saw the choker. He said, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Sure." So he said, "I want to put out a blanket. I have some trade goods." So he spread them all out. I looked at his stuff. He had some moccasins, but it wasn't hand-tanned, Indian tanned, just store-bought, and other items. And he said, "I really want that choker." So I told him, "All right." I took it off. He tried it on. It fit him. And he said, "Well, help yourself." He said, "Also, I have this." And in 1970, $200 was a lot of money. And he said, "And have this." He had a package there. So he pushed it forward, and I opened it up. I at that time, it was the hippie Indian days. And inside that package was about, I would say, quarter of an ounce of hashish. I thought, yes, I'll take it and I'll smoke it or I'll trade it. But that was my first piece that I ever sold. It was to a big guy named Bear. He called himself Bear. And it's strange because I'll move on just quickly to throw something else in. One time I was in Toronto, and I was staying at a friend of mine's house, and she had two houses, a lot of rooms, so she gave me a room. I was waiting to go south to New York to meet with Mrs. Quinn. So I went to a store, and there was one wonderful jacket-type shirt that was left. And the store was closeout sale. So it was a regular $80, and he only wanted 20 for it. So I told him, "All right, hang on." He didn't have, the card system, your debit card system. He said only cash. So I said, "Hang on, I got 3 blocks to go. I'll get the cash and I'll be right back." He says, "No, I can't do that." I said, "Well, I'll leave the $20 with you on this card. I'll just leave the card. It's got money in there." He says, "I can't do that." Oh, man. And there's another guy eyeballing the shirt jacket. And finally, the guy grabbed the shirt jacket. He came up. He had a big beard, a big, huge beard on. And he put the shirt down, and he says, "I got the 20. This one is on me." He turned around and he says, "Give me a hug, man." So I hugged him, and he said, "They call me Papa Bear around here." So also, we're Bear Clan, from Mom's side. I thought about it years later when I got my clan and everything. And I thought, well, those grizzly-looking guys with the big beards, both of them were named Bear. They helped me. So that was so wonderful. Moving back to the artwork.
Awesome. Bear's looking out for you.
Yeah, all these things came to me last night. I was up till about 4 in the morning. I was going to write it down. I said, no, I got to try my memory. Make sure everything's in order. But those are wonderful things that happened. Now, moving back to the artwork, off and on, when I could, when I was stationary, I would make my own tools that I could travel with in a little bag. I got a little canvas bag, and I would stop here and there. I'd go to the shooting ranges where they fire off their guns, and I'd ask permission to go and pick out some of the casings, the bullet casings, empties. They always said, yeah, go ahead. So I started to do pieces. It was primarily chokers, necklaces, and later on, I tried a breastplate, a huge one, man size. And I was traveling at that time. As a matter of fact, your brother Nip was with me. And I stopped at an Indian casino in Saskatchewan, North Battleford. And I went in there and showed it to him. Within half an hour, I walked out of there with $2,100 for that one piece. Of course, we played games for a little bit, and then we moved out. So I knew everything was working. So I kept that little bag with me with all the materials. And periodically, when I was stuck, I'd sit down. With these casings, I washed them, I cleaned them by hand, I polished them by hand individually. Even the small little 22 casings, I do it all by hand. And since that time, I found a coating, so they'll never tarnish. So they'll look as new as if they came out of the box. So there was a lot of things I had to learn in getting my art system down, because there is a system to it. And I ended up in BC one time, and on my way through towards Jasper, I got to Hinton. I thought, I'm going to go pick up my sons, your brothers, Eli and Papa. So I got there. They were ready. They jumped in, and we were gone. So when we got to my late partner's cabin, Cooch, place that you stayed as well, we got to work. They were doing the polishing. I was knocking out the bottoms of the casings and things like that. We had like a little factory going, three of us. And we made, I think it was 8 pieces altogether, one of them a big breastplate. So we had enough to get to Vancouver. Oh, put that money in the tank, made some sandwiches, and we left. Well, what a wonderful day. We made $2,700. Boy, did we celebrate. We went to the best fish and chips. And we walked around the beach, showed the boys where I used to hang out and whatnot. And we had a wonderful time. But we made some money with those bullet casings that I turned into art pieces. There's several times that I carried pieces with me. And for example, I was stuck one time with gas. I had $10, but I thought, no, I'm saving that for food. And I had a quarter of a tank. And it was near Brooks, Alberta, somewhere near there out of Calgary. So I talked to the guy that was running the service station, and he looked at the stuff. He said, I'll give you $20 in gas. I told him, no, I need a full tank. And the guy that was pumping the gas, he come in, he said, hey, are you selling those? I said, yeah. He said, how much? I said, 1 tank of gas. He says, I'll pay for it. So that was a neck piece. It was like a small choker necklace. He wanted it so bad. So there's an example where my artwork always pulled me through. And a lot of times, like you're saying, and it is true, a lot of times when I would say not a bad mind, but things are getting confusing in my mind, I thought, no, I'll start doing something. So I'd do a lot of casings, polish them and everything to get them ready to be put together. And I'd carry them with me. So in my time, I added it up the other day. And with the artwork over the years, I've made $18,000 just when I needed it. So it does help. So I got it down to where I think I can make close to $5,000 a year just added income, to my pension, and I make sure it's under the certain amount that you don't have to declare, so that the government can't bother me. And usually I work on the reserve. They can't touch me anyway on the reserve. So the artwork, yes, it's been my saving grace when I needed monies, and somehow there was always somebody there who liked the piece or several of the pieces. Just the other day, a young man came to visit. He was visiting upstairs from where I am here. It was an Indian family. And when Sasha and I were together, he had something in common with her. They were both Ukrainian Indian blood. It was pretty interesting. So he saw the piece on the wall. It was in a case, glass. And he said, "I want that." I said, "Well, it's pretty expensive." So he said, "Well, I'll show you my bank account." He showed me on the phone. And it was $1,800. He said, "I go to work. I'll be paid in a week if you can wait." I said, "I don't know if it'll be gone. I'm trying to sell it." So he punched up $1,200. He said, "Well, let's do." I said, "Yes," because he liked it so much. So apparently he's going to be wearing it in power if he hasn't already. That was just a year ago. So that helped a lot as well. You know, we had groceries and money to travel to the mountains, you know, when we wanted to air it out. And it just came in handy. So right now I'm sitting with a lot of empty casings I haven't polished and I haven't touched because I've been sick for, 2 weeks, and I'm okay now. I pulled through just using, herbs and that type of medicine. And your sister took good care of me. So getting past that, going back, there's other things that have also helped pull me through over the years. Like I traveled a lot, I really a lot. A lot of times I would hitchhike, but I would always end up, it seemed, with Indian families that would give me rides and take me home and feed me, because somehow when you have a sense of humor, even if you're down and out and you can laugh, somehow people appreciate you, you know. And I know one of the Blackfoot families that took me in southern Alberta, I actually was hitchhiking through their small town. Not really a town, it was a store and a service station, that type of thing, grocery store. And there was a reserve. And this older woman came out with a little girl. The girl would be about 4 years old. She couldn't speak. She was deaf. And I remember the woman's name, if she's still alive. Hi, Juliana. Her name was Juliana. And she took me to a little shabby house she had. It was very clean inside. Outside, it looked like it was going to fall over. But inside, it was spotless. She gave me a room I could stay in, small room. And next, I was asleep. Next thing, I was awake, and she had made some food. And I happened to know a couple of the brothers from Vancouver who lived on that reserve, and she showed me the place. So I went and visited them. I was sober at the time. I didn't want to drink. And they were still into it, so I went back with Juliana. Stayed there for about a week, had such a wonderful time. She showed me towards the mountains where I was going to hitchhike through. She said certain places I should stop and, just speak as, Indian people do. And I did so. And when I hit the highway after I came out of the bush where she told me to stop, I got a ride straight through to Vancouver. So that's a kind of life I've had. Besides the beadwork, I've also had, some would say good luck. I would say good fortune and good people. Because sometimes a good mind can pull you through. And sometimes a bad mind can hold you up. So I've been so fortunate to find people with good minds to help me through my travel. It was usually always on Indian reserves or Indian people that picked me up. Although there was also good white people. Uh, in my travels, I I've had so many different types of jobs. For example, uh, believe it or not, I was security. I was security for 2 weeks. Had to wear a little uniform, which I didn't like, but it was a paycheck, and uh, I moved on from there. I herded cattle on horseback at a ranch. Did that for about 3 weeks in southern Alberta. Uh, got paid cash, and I was actually given an old truck, which it drove for about, I'd say, 200 miles, and I said goodbye to it. and But it all helped out. Uh, Another job I had for years, I went in and got a job when I was the age in the bars at that time to go into a bar. You had to be 21. I was 18, and I used to shave as much as I could so my mustache would grow, and I'd use a pencil, a dark pencil, to put a little mustache there. So I looked older. So I got a job washing glasses in the bar, all that kind of stuff. It's like dishwashing. So I did that for a while. Pretty soon the guy liked me, late George, of all things, George the Greek. There's always a George the Greek. This guy was good. This guy was good. So he said, I know how old you are. I said, I heard your brother talking to you. My brother came in and visited in the bar. And he says, I'm not going to say nothing because you're good at this. He says, I'm going to teach you how to mix drinks. So he started me, and I learned fast. I could just straight pour without the shot glass. I could straight pour 1 ounce. And he used to measure it every time. He said, how the hell can you do this? I told him, it's all in the mind, George. He couldn't do it. But I stayed with him for just about 6 months. And he told me if I go and register with the union, I was good enough to go anywhere in the world where, the standard drinks universally, internationally, I should say, they're standard drinks, and I knew them all, from the Manhattan to the whatever, the Pink Lady, the whatever. I could do them all. And it was something I really enjoyed. And at times I felt so good to talk to people. Some of them were, well-to-do rich guys. I remember one guy in particular in Vancouver bar. He'd keep talking to me. And although I was busy, I'd come back to him. He'd always put $1 right near for the bar trophies there. And we talk and talk. And somehow he said, I've got a friend of mine, I want him to come and talk with you. I said, sure. Well, I ended up like a psychologist because they were telling me their problems. I didn't know how to solve their problems. But I'd think, well, if I was in his situation, here's what I'd do. And I guess it worked for some of them. That's why he brought his friend. So bartending was wonderful for me. I kept at it for years off and on when I needed to. And I missed a trip to Europe. There was, the union called me and they said, go down to the hall. And there was an opportunity for somebody who had a ticket like me. And I did get a ticket from Edmonton Bar School. They tested me and I passed within an hour. I got a diploma, which they thought it didn't mean much at that time, but it did. So I went down to the Union Hall, and here it was on a ship, bartending on a ship that would travel the world. I thought, yes, I'm going to do this. So I put my name in. And my problem is I went over to the island to visit a friend. And coming back, I missed the ferry. So I had to wait till the next one. And when I got to Vancouver, it was nighttime. The morning I went down to the Union Hall, somebody else got the job. Somebody else took it because I was late. So Later on, I found out it was a friend of mine, an Italian, John, and I ran into him in Edmonton, just near the Christmas time. And he told me about the journey on the ship, and he says, I know that you applied for that. And he said, I really wanted you to get it because he'd been across the ocean a couple of times. But he was a good bartender and a good waiter. And he told me stories of the adventures he had in different ports that he pulled into. And I was thinking, I should have had that job. But he was such a good guy, and I'm glad he got it. For that, he made us the greatest, from scratch, Italian meatballs and spaghetti from his own mother's recipe. So that was a wonderful Christmas, just him and I, in some little room with a stove. But yes, bartending was good for me. It was good. I met a lot of good people. I've got jobs from others just bartending. I got a job as an extra job as I was a watchman at the stables for racehorses, because one of the guys that come into the bar steadily had 3 racehorses, and his caretaker, his groomer, and all that, he was laid off. He said the guy drank too much. So I used to go out there with those horses, and I'd spend time with all those horses. You know, I'd go and brush the 3 down, and then I'd go and visit the other horses. And one of them, just like he could talk, and I'd walk by and I'd say something to him, he could go like that with his head, just like he could acknowledge what I was saying. But, that was a good job too. I liked it. But toughest part was shoveling. Had to shovel the stalls out pretty well every day. But I wore a mask just like people do today, wearing masks. At that time, I wore a pretty heavy-duty mask. But that was a wonderful job as well. And there were so many others. But at that time, I used to save money so that I could move around a bit. And I used to get involved with people on the islands. A lot of the hippie generation, they'd go and live on those islands, even in the bush if they had to, or some of them would chip in, buy a little piece of land and work it. So it came the time that Trudeau Sr. was the Prime Minister of Canada, and he had a program called LIP, Local Initiatives Program. And anybody could apply, and they would, you could write up something that you're going to count peanuts, and if you get to 100 peanuts, what you're going to do is open 50 of them and see if they're all okay, edible. Stupid things like that. You send in a proposal, they give you the grant. So the hippies, friends of mine, Indian hippies as well, they got LIP grants, and they all chipped in and bought land up the Sunshine Coast. And they had such big, beautiful gardens. Some of them built little barns, barn-type places to keep their vegetables. And I used to go and help them, pick vegetables, midsummer and in the fall, potatoes and whatnot. So I visited those farms, and it was like better than couch surfing in them days. I always had a good bed in a room. And of course, they always had their evening smoke. Everybody would get a little bit buzzed and have a good sleep. I traveled up down the Sunshine Coast doing exactly that, just helping different farms, friends of mine who bought farms. And I'd stop at the reserve and I'd stay there with friends overnight. But that's one place, Seashell, just up from Vancouver, up to, they call it the Sunshine Coast. I was stationary there, and I started to make, I recall I made about 5 or 6 pieces. I kept one, always to display. And I got to Vancouver, and I sold out. My art pieces sold out in about 20 minutes. It was at one of those fairs, where everything was free. There was even a couple hippies living in teepees there. So I made my rounds, and everybody wanted a piece. And I got orders at that time. I think it was, I got about eight to 10 orders. I know I didn't fill a couple of them. I just moved on. But again, back to the
What
artwork.
time
That's
frame
what
was this,
pulled me
Lester?
through.
Lester, what year was
Hello?
this? What year was this?
Okay. We're looking at, when I first started, my first piece, that was 1970 when Bear bought it. And after that, right through 70s, right through, pretty well through the 70s. That's what I was doing, my art pieces. 70, I remember in 77, there was something about those numbers. I'm 77 years old today. 1977, there was an art show going on. And I was shy to go there with my pieces. I was thinking, these guys are professionals and everything like that. And another friend of mine encouraged me, Jess, he said, come on, your pieces are worthy. He says, I got a place there. He was a good artist, but, canvas, he was good. So he says, you put your stuff with mine. Well, I did. And everything sold. And it's sold good because he put the prices on it, not me. He said I was always undercutting myself. And that was in 1977. The art show was in Vancouver. But the years, it was primarily the 70s that my artwork really helped. Right up through it, I shouldn't even just say that. Most of the time it was when I was really stuck. I always had pieces, and it was in the 70s that pulled me through. In the 80s as well, 90s. In the 90s, I started to really improve on my pieces, meaning I found the company that has the coating that you put on the casings, and they never tarnish. So prior to that, I just told people they look good because they look rather archaic. Once they they tarnish. I liked them when they were tarnished, but they leave a blue mark on your neck. So I started using different things. That came late 80s and 90s. Now, I would say right into 2000, somewhere in there, yes, I was still doing the pieces. And at that time, I was on the prairies in Winnipeg. And I wanted to leave badly, and that was, I believe that was about 2001. Again, I was stationary. I had 10 pieces. They all sold out inside 2 hours. I left town with $2,800. No, I'm sorry. I had 3,000. I left town with 2,700. I owed 300 on my rent. So that's an example of, keeping something up and improving it continuously, which I did with the artwork. Probably right through 2000, I would say that was my really good year. I recall making close to $10,000 on the art pieces alone. So it really helps. But as it is now, I have everything ready to go. I'm going to be making some pieces, and I'll display them at one of our sessions in the future. I have some actually on the phone now, which I could send if you're interested. I got a few pieces that I recorded or took pictures of.
I have lots of photos too of your stuff, but I also have pictures, Dad, that I took of you working on some pieces, like shining them and putting the coating on. I have pictures of you actually doing that too. But I was gonna say on Instagram, I don't know if you know what Instagram is, Dad. It's kind of like it's a app like Facebook, except it's more about posting photos.
Yeah.
Anyways, I have a friend on there that lives in Calgary, and she was going out with her friends to the Stampede, and they had like a group photo, and I noticed one of the girls in the photo was wearing like this small almost looks like a breastplate necklace, and it looked like bullets.
Yeah.
And I was like, that looks like my dad's work, you know? And so I clicked on her profile, and sure enough, she had posted when she first bought it, and she said it was from you.
Oh,
And she said that she
wow.
wouldn't have, she doesn't normally spend, you know, this amount of money on herself, but she really loved it. She was like, and I really wanted to have this piece, and it was worth every penny. And so I was just thought that was really cool to randomly see one of your pieces, you know, on my feed.
Yeah. Wonderful.
You
And
Oh,
know,
she
that
credited
sounds
you too.
cool.
and you know what's funny is you're in talking about this. It's I always think that there's the most special thing, and being a little selfish here, in the time that we spent together, there's so many things that you say that offer me solace for the stories that I'll never get to hear, right? And today you're talking about, with the shell casings and even talking about breastplates. I was talking about the other day, I was really sad because I don't know what happened to my dad's breastplate, when everything
Mm,
like is gone. I have nothing, right? And then you were
mm,
talking about shell casings, because when I was a kid I used to pick them up from the gun range all the time, and it's just so weird, like little like it's just little things, and it ties together, and it's like that story, your story about making these is like just kind of like it just kind of fills in the rest of my cup, like it's
yeah.
so nice to know that things that uh I have no like solution for, the absolution I'm looking for, I'm getting it through your words right now. So it's so cool to know that you make breastplates out of shell casings, and those are two things that are from my childhood that are so relevant, like that's
Yeah.
so, that's
That's
so neat.
wonderful.
Yeah, that's so neat. Like I love it so much, because I just correlate stories, and maybe it's because we want to hear the things we want to hear, but it's really awesome to like, I
Yeah.
can't wait to see your work.
Yeah. I'll, eggs has some, and I have other stuff on, on my phone. Uh, I have some pieces, like I say, that are going to be in the works very shortly now that I feel better. And I'll sure make sure that you get copies of it. Um, there's another thing that came to mind last night in my travels. Now, this this in particular, this will it takes me back. I think I was 15 years old. Yeah, about no, yeah. When I walked out of that institution, that kids jail, and went home to the old people. Well, it was a time when I was somewhat angry at the world, for all my time being put in those children institutions, jails I prefer, uh, and angry young guy. And at that time, I thought I started to get along with white people pretty good. There was a few white boys in there, poor families in that institute, and I got along well with them. But generally, I didn't, because I was very badly treated. But at that time, I wandered to the town. There's not much of a town, hotel, and all that kind of thing. And here, there's a guy that called me, great big, tall white guy, and asked him, "What did you want?" He said, "I want to talk to you." He said, "Your mother, your mother is Agnes. She lives up the road here." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I knew most of you when you were small, when you were just little guys." He said, "I seen you at your old people's place." So I thought, this guy must have been around for a while. So we started talking, and he told me this. He said one time he was cutting wood, and that's when power saws were first came out and all that. And he cut himself bad. He was in the bush, and he said he was bleeding really bad. He didn't know what to do. He started to, I guess you would say today we'd say, freak out. And he said he half walked and half crawled to the road. He said, that road I know, there's not much traffic at all. but he started to move slowly and slowly, and he started bleeding more and more. And he got to a house, and he said in that house there was a bunch of kids and some old woman. They were Indian people. And he said they brought him in right away, laid him down, and started to work on his leg. And the old lady, she was speaking in the language he didn't understand, but she was putting different types of, he thought it was leaves on him. And then she put something else, and she chewed something, and she put it on his cut. He said it was very deep. He said he went to sleep. She gave him a cup of tea. He figures that she put something in there to make him sleep. When he woke up, there was no blood. And she gave him what he called, and I know that one today, it's called a red root. I know how to prepare it, but it will stop the bleeding. It will stop any size of cut in the bleeding. So he told me about that. He said, he said, I have the greatest respect for your people, and I know your families, and I got to know them. I wanted to know all the Indian people in the area because of what kind of help he got. And he said that old lady was like his savior. So he was so kind. And he told me straight out, says, I never used to trust Indians. I never liked Indians. I said, if you don't mind, when I see you, I'm going to shake your hand. I said, sure. And sure enough, I'd see him in town. He'd come right up and shake hands. And I wasn't old enough to go in the bar, but he'd always invite. I told him no. I'm all right. But he'd sneak out a couple bottles of beer I'd take up to my mom. She never ever drank. But I'd have him there. But he came to mind because he was the one that probably broke the ice with me and a lot of white people. And I started to get along so well after that, off and on. But it took me a long time to trust because it was mostly white people that ran those institutions, the priests and the nuns. And I thought, maybe all white people are mean and they're bad. That's how I thought when I'm young in those institutions. And I can say, looking back on it, I had a fresh mind when I was in there. I could figure out things in a hurry. But I also, I like to hang with those who were always centered out as troublemakers. And that's where I used to get the beatings. But putting that aside and moving on, where a lot of that bad feeling towards people of white skin, it left me. It left me entirely. And then when I looked at my background, I could never figure out where it is that there was somebody, white man or white woman in our bloodline. When I did find out, it goes way back to the 1800s. Strange how genetics work. Because, like I said, when I was in the Institute, they used to keep me and others like me there because we're light skinned, we're not that dark. And I used to think about that. Because they even used to tease me. And they'd call me, oh, I don't want to say it, but they'd say white boy. But, they were just teasing, and I knew it because these were Indian boys. And we'd go and compare color, our arms and whatnot, and they're always all darker than me. But in the summer, I'd catch up. So we all were dark in the summertime. But yeah, I recall that being called a white boy. And later on, getting out and having to deal with the fact that I wasn't prejudiced. I know it wasn't that. It was just the bad experiences with those who were supposed to be like our replaced family, which they were not. But I got over it. But thinking of that one white man and how he helped me so much, just simply by telling me that story, how he got help. And of all people, it was from Indian people that he didn't like. It sure changed him. But that's one of the things from the past that also came to mind. Uh, the area of Buck Lake, when I was approximately 16 or 17, when I went back after coming off the road and going to see the old people, it just struck me that, where Mushroom, the old man, he was bedridden. And he always used to try to get up. And so I'd go over and I'd help him to get up because he always wanted to get up. And Kohkum used to tell him, she'd tell him, hey, Kali, yeah. She'd like, quit being like that. Quit trying to, quit trying to be stuff. She used to say this. She used to tell him, Kaya Washkaniga, so, which means quit trying to be like a young guy. but she'd always laugh about it. But he'd just get up and laugh, the old man, and I'd walk with him. Such wonderful memories to walk with that old man. He's always happy, always laughing about things. But also I remember Cousin Annie, she was like a sister. She grew up with them. What language I knew, I learned from her, and my nephew Francis. It was so wonderful to be with those two because they seemed to be so used to the world, the outside, more so than I was. I was just adjusting. And they took me through it. We had a lot of fun going to town and using the language where others couldn't understand us. But never really, having a bad mind for people, just laughing at the way they were and the things they said. And we talk in a language. That's the time I was catching on. And I remember both of them. They both passed since. And I remembered them when I was thinking about everything last night. It was like a brother who was actually a nephew and a cousin who was like a sister. And it hurts me to say it, but both of them were involved in accidents, different places, how they passed. But they're always in my heart and my mind. They come to mind quite often, as do the old people. But I recall another time with the old people. I was about 17 that time, and I was surprised because Kohkum had a washing machine outside their log house, and it was one of those pulleys, with a gas engine. And I used to go and pull it for her to get it started. She was getting older and sort of fire up. I'd be amazed at how it worked. I'd watch her wash the stuff. She'd still go out and I'd try to help her, but I just carried a basket of clothes. But she'd always hang them herself on the line outside. And I remember her clothes smelled so good and fresh. And she used to put something in with the clothes. I don't know what it was. Another thing I remember about her, when we used to camp out, when I was a kid, a lot younger, probably about 5, 6, when we used to camp out, she used to go and pick something. I'd like to find out what it is today. And when the tents were set up, there'd be usually 3 or 4 tents in a row, canvas tents with the stove and everything. She would burn that in a pan, and she'd go into every one of those tents. And it's just like smudging around with whatever it was. And there was never a mosquito that bothered us. We could sleep good all night. You could hear them outside. Never did we get bit when she did that. And I used to watch her. And I went with her one time, and I can't remember what she picked. But yeah, that's one thing I'd sure like to find out that she knew. There's so much. I'm just like going everywhere. I had an uncle, late Uncle George. I recall he was teaching me the language. He was a carpenter. He never went to any carpenter school. He was a natural. and he could he could use a measuring tape and all that kind of stuff, but he wasn't that good with spelling. So I used to help him spell, me and his son, my cousin, and we'd work with him. And he'd have jobs that some of them he had to cancel. He was that good as a carpenter. And he'd never had any training whatsoever from any institution of carpentry or trade school. He was just a natural, and it was so wonderful to work with him. I learned so much. And his sons, they became very much the same. I worked with them later on. I was about 20 years old. And my older cousin, Richard, he had a contract. And Richard had never been to school. He was just learning from his wife, Elma, how to write and read and everything. And I would help him periodically. But he was that natural guy who could go out and do carpentry just like his dad, Uncle George. And I worked with him off and on for about 6 months. And I felt good because I taught him how to spell, spell correctly. He used to be able to spell, but, upside down, letters and whatnot. But that was a wonderful time in my life to run into one of my relatives like him and work with him and find out that he inherited it from his father. Never went to any kind of technical school to learn carpentry, just had it. So just some of the things I thought of last night and thought I'd bring up. As for me, I tried everything. Like I said earlier, I was once signed reference that somebody in one of those Indian newspapers, I was referred as a Métis drifter. I read the article. Whoever it was, I forget who it was that wrote it, didn't like me at all. And said I had no roots whatsoever. But I laughed about it because I responded in the paper and I said, I do have roots. And that was verified by a judge in court. It was funny because it was close to the weekend. Here it was Thursday, Friday, Apollo was going to start, and I wanted to be there so bad, and I was in lockup. So my chance was Thursday. I faced the judge, and the prosecutor said, after he reads out my record, on or about blah blah blah, just like the police do, and he has a charge also of blah blah blah. Nothing really serious, mostly scrapping. But he was going to hold me. He said, oh, we want him detained. So I told the judge, I said, Your Honor, the prosecutor has established that I do have roots in this community, going by the charges and the years. It's all in the city of Vancouver, and I do have roots, sir. The judge laughed and he said, I've never heard that before. He said, I'm going to release you, sir, on your own recognizance. And you appear here Tuesday morning. I said, all right. I was out. I was at the Powell. I proved I had roots from my, they call it criminal record. I call it self-defense record. Because a lot of times that's what it was, defending myself, yet being charged for assault. But anyway, just one of many stories from my life.
Oh, that's awesome.
And at that time, another one. I tell a lot of people. I think I've said it before. I've asked many times, well, why did you drop out of school? I told them because they couldn't fail me. A lot of people didn't get it. And I didn't want to be a failure. But yeah, it's been so wonderful. There's so many things that come to mind now that I'm sitting here talking with you. But I recall another time. It was back on the reserve. Your late Muscle Mamel Pipot Reserve. And him and I were pretty close. One day he said, come on, He says, no, come on, we're going to go visit these religious people. So we went, and they had a trailer on the reserve. They were a Jehovah Witness. So we went in there, and the old guy, Musham at that time, he was about 80. He was in his late 80s, 87, somewhere 86, 87. Still walking good. Him and I walked all the way there. And we sat down, and he said, do you have any tea? And the woman says, oh, we don't drink tea, Amo. He said, well, I do. So, so does he. And he said, you have an ashtray? I want to smoke. He said, oh, we don't smoke. We don't. In the Bible it says, and they quote. He says, well, I do. So she found an ashtray, gave it to him. And he says, look at you. He said to the preacher, he said, how old are you? He said, I'm 64. He said, you're just a kid. And I see you. You're in your car all the time. And I see you walk a little bit. He says, you're bent over all the time, moving around, bent. He said, in my 80s, look, I walk wherever I go. He says, what's wrong with you? The guy said, oh, I had trouble when I was younger and whatnot. He said, well, you could get fixed, but you got to think like an Indian. He said, oh, that's impossible. And so Muslim said, that's your problem. You can't think like us. he really rubbed it in. But they as well had a sense of humor. They laughed as well. Oh, they gave us a nice luncheon and we left. Walked all the way back.
Awesome. Oh man, that's awesome. I love all your stories today, Dad. They're really feel good stories. And I'm really glad that like we'll be coming back together, at least once a month, and we'll be able to hear more of your experiences and stories, and whichever ones you wish to share. But as we come to a close today, is there anything that you'd like to say or voice about this whole experience of coming together and sharing your stories and talking about things like that, and just kind of opening up those experiences to the world? Like, if anybody can walk away from learning from your stories, what is it that you would like them to understand?
Yeah. Most of all, I feel good to do this to begin with, as I told you. For me, it's not venting. It comes out it comes out so naturally. And it feels good. At one time, like I said, I would never talk about these things. But if it's going to help people, if it brings them a smile, or if they laugh, if it brings them more sensitivity towards many of the issues that I talked about and exposed, I'm grateful. To me, that's why I'm doing it. That's what I'm in this for. Because I'm at that age now. I maybe have 20 years left. I don't know, but I'm going to use them the best I can. And at 77, I feel like I just began to live, And when I think of all the things that I've done in my lifetime, and I try to tell some young people today, they kind of get it, but not like you do. You know what I mean? It's like a different world. It's a different world to them. But there's so many stories that now are starting to come to mind. But I would like to do that once a month. We'll do this, and I'm going to write down some notes just to remember certain people in my life, because without other people, I wouldn't have a life. It would just be me. So there's so many people that I've met in my lifetime that were wonderful, good people. That's what kept me going. And today I can say that I don't use the word love, but I care more for people than I ever did in my lifetime. especially after this last sickness and experience what I did. And it sure gave me an appreciation for all that I've lived and all that is yet to come. And I always have a good mind for you and your children, uh, for Essay, like your sister, and a lot of people that have been so receptive to me. It feels so good inside. As an old man, I can say I really do appreciate you all.
I am so
And
grateful
you,
to you, Lester. Like, I think one of the things that that I've taken from this time, in hearing your story is, people have an expectation of what storytelling should be or how things should be told,
mhm.
because people want a polished version of reality so it's easier to digest. And I think the thing that you've done in our time together is shown that we're just human people that are expressing the things and saying them in a way of how we experience them, and uh, it's offered me a lot of comfort, even in the uncomfortable stories that you've given, uh, to know that, um, what you're saying, uh, could potentially be a saving grace to people because they don't feel like their stories are valid, um, but
Mhm.
by the way that they tell them, or that the way that, society may view them based on their social status. I love the way you
Yeah.
speak of people now, because we create these pockets of community. I see that with you. You're traveling, you have pockets of community everywhere because you've always treated people good, you know unless they deserved otherwise, which you've mentioned, but
Well, a little bit of fisticuffing along the way.
yeah, yeah. A little scrap here and there, but um it's really good because I think if more people lived that way and lived honestly and lived with integrity, and took things as without expectation and take them at face value, because that's what people are able to offer, is what they can offer. I just
Mhm.
appreciate your offerings of your stories in this really authentic way, where there's no expectation other than for you to show up and be you. You didn't perform, you didn't do anything that made it a show. You just were Lester, and I really appreciate that.
I appreciate you a lot, and I thank you for the invitation, and we'll do more.